Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast. We would encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your hosts, TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host, Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
Man, I don't know if it just works different because the NBA season is in full effect, but it feels like a long time since the last time me and you potted, man. And so much has happened. So many streaks
So
have been happening
much.
across the NBA. So many injuries are happening across the NBA. And TV, there's a lot of disgruntled individuals across the NBA as well. So we got a
Disgruntled.
lot to get into in today's episode. It's been a while, man.
It has been a while. Disgruntled fans, disgruntled front offices, disgruntled players, all of this stuff going on right now. Surprising, Jay. I know we're not going to talk about it in today's episode, but looking at the Pistons being the number one team in the East right now is insane to me, especially seeing from where we were 2 years ago.
Yeah, man, I feel like they were one of those teams last year that when you saw what they were doing, you had to ask yourself if it was a repeat of the Kings, somebody that we are going to talk about today.
Yes.
As a squad that, had that light the beam year, vibes were high. They are the third seed in the Western Conference, and you do find yourself going like, is this sustainable? They are the Kings. Could they, could they end up coming back down to earth? And not only have they come back down to earth, they probably shattered through it and flew on to the
Ooh.
other side of it. As opposed to the Detroit Pistons, granted, they are very hurt right now in terms of where their roster sits on the injury report, because it seems like just about everybody's dealing with something over there in Detroit. But to kick off the season, they've just been finding ways to get dubs, and Cade Cunningham is looking like a real MVP when he's been on the floor.
No, 100%. I mean, we're not talking again. We're not going into deep with the Detroit Pistons today. Maybe there's a trade that might come up that might be a little bit of a preview for the Pistons later on today. But at the same time, yeah, it's just been a crazy season so far. It's been super fun basketball. I watched one of those games from the other night where there were like 3 game winners in the same night and stuff like that. I was locked into that Heat Cavs game, which was insane. So yeah, basketball is fully underway, man, and there's so much stuff going on. I'm just happy to get back on here and talk some ball. But it's going to be a little bit different today, Jay, because we've been talking about, some of the most surprising teams, some of the most disappointing teams. Jay, we're in what? Recording November 13th? We're already hitting the trade machine.
Yo.
Already here in this episode because we have some disgruntled stars, a team potentially wanting to tear it all down. So we're going to look at some trades for probably some of the earliest we've done in like any of our seasons that we've done this podcast. So should be a good one. Should be a really good episode for today. Obviously, if you guys have been following the NBA, you know some of the players that we're going to be talking about. But it should be a fun episode nonetheless. But Jay, before we get into that, we do have to plug our socials. Make sure you follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at Routine Jumper. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. You got the picks, you got the news, you got the different series there, you got the clips, all that stuff you can find over there on any of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast platforms. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. And if you're listening to any of our episodes on any of our podcast networks, Spotify or Apple, make sure you leave a review, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate all of y'all's support. Yeah, you ready to get into this?
Yes, sir. We are in drama mode. TV, we try to keep it drama free, but the NBA just can't seem to help themselves.
They can't seem to help himself. And Jay, we got to start with probably the most talked about news all this week.
Yeah.
9 months after the trade occurred, the trade that sent shockwaves throughout pop culture as well. You could say that. I feel like this is one of those NBA trades that even like took a shock to pop culture, where they're like, "Oh, this is like if Michael Jackson." Like I've seen like crazy comparisons like back in the day, but the man who facilitated it all, Nico Harrison, has been let go by the Dallas Mavericks after the Dallas Mavericks go off to a horrible start this year, dealing with a bunch of injuries on their own, including the guy they traded for, Anthony Davis. And now sitting at 14th in the Western Conference, wasn't looking good. And Patrick Dumont and the ownership group was like, "Yeah, let's pull the cord now because it seems like everyone hates Nico. We're bad. There's no reason to keep him around." So they ended up letting him go. Crazy turn of events, Jay. We're definitely gonna like look through like Nico's tenure here at the Dallas Mavericks. But I'm gonna throw it over to you. What were your initial thoughts when this news broke?
I mean, the first thing I thought was that, dang, it happened a lot sooner than I could have expected. Just merely off of the fact that I didn't think that 3-8 was enough to justify or unjustify the decision that was made. I feel like if you thought it was dumb, if you thought that fans were disgruntled and upset about the potential of, this team taking a nosedive after a move like that, I mean, you would have just cleared this air way before the season starts. You let the debacle of Anthony Davis going down with injury and being in and out of the lineup. Derek Lively's missed time. Daniel Gafford's missed time. Obviously, you come into the season without Kyrie Irving. Klay Thompson isn't playing well. Cooper Flag's playing point guard. Never done that before, right? Like you come into a season that kind of was derailed from dysfunction from the very beginning, but you knew that. You knew coming into the year that a handful of these things were going to be an issue. You knew you were going to start the season without Kyrie Irving. You knew that essentially, based off the roster construction coming into the season, that you didn't have a point guard you felt truly comfortable with. Even with bringing in D'Angelo Russell, who clearly isn't been good enough of a ball handler to the point they felt they needed to lean on Cooper Flag to be that decision maker. And then with Anthony Davis, you knew that was somebody that, given his injury history, which is very consistent because outside of 2 years ago where he played 70 something games, he's never played 60 or more games in his career, pretty much. I mean, dating back to his early New Orleans Pelicans days, the majority of his career, 60 games is an achievement for him. So to start the season off the way he has is not surprising. And now here we are. You're in a situation where you're kind of trying to pick up all the pieces and make sense of a team that I think there's not going to last that long. Like everybody's talking about Anthony Davis as the trade chip, but I think this is going to be one of those things where the Dumont family is going to want to. I think they're going to want to sever all ties to anything Nico Harrison related. That can go back to the Daniel Gafford trade. They can go back to the PJ Washington trade. TV, that can even go as far as trying to explore to see what the heck they can do with Kyrie Irving. I see a world where after everything that happened, after all the booing, after all of the attacks on social media, that this team like really takes a good look at themselves and says, wow, the only way that we're going to get this fan base back is if we hit the full reset button around Cooper Flag. I think Anthony Davis is the first guy up as far as trading, but I would not be surprised if this team goes into full fire sale mode, bro. That's what caught to my mind when I first saw this happen. If you're gonna fire Nico after 11 games, this franchise might be setting themselves up to do some drastic stuff throughout the rest of this regular season.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this I'll take it back to like my Western Conference predictions when I was doing the over unders because their line before the season was 40 and a half.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty generous. Some people will say, "Oh, they still very well head coached by Jason Kidd," which I'm not going to take away anything from Jason Kidd. I mean, he inherited this mess, so like it has nothing to do with him. But but like you mentioned, there was just too many like blow up factors on this team to say that this team was going to be a play-in team, that this team was going to be a team that's going to be over 500. I knew from the get-go that they were going to over-rely on Cooper Flag too much, and this is going to be one of the most odd situations for a number one overall pick to get into, because not only are they kind of looked into the situation of getting a number one pick, but you have to deal with the aftermath. Even though you weren't a part of it, you have to deal with the aftermath of these upset Dallas Mavericks fans who are still pissed off, and rightfully so, after the whole Nico Harrison Luka Doncic trade. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing on Cooper Flag. You've seen, like, if people have seen social media, like his mom has been like going crazy saying like, "Oh, why are you like blaming my son for this? He wasn't a part of it." But he literally is just collateral. It's not him. It's really not him. It's just the frustrations and the rightful frustrations of the Dallas Maverick fan base. And with more and more stuff coming out, yes, people might say this is earlier than expected, but when you start hearing, reports saying that the players did not want to play at home because they were tired of the fire Nico chants, because they felt like it was more of a disadvantage to play at home at this point, to hear that Nico Harrison had these magical steps up here from the workers, so he didn't have to walk down the stairs in order to, interact with Dallas Mavericks fans because they were concerned for his safety. If these are the reports coming out, then you knew that his leash was short. Yeah. Because no matter what you do, and I'm excited to hear. I was gonna hear your thoughts too. If like there was anything that was gonna be able to save Nico Harrison's job at this point, because his brand and the Dallas Mavericks are so intertwined that as long as he's associated with that franchise, Fans are going to be pissed. It doesn't matter if you have a first round exit. It doesn't matter if you surprisingly make it to the second round. They had Luka Doncic in the palm of their hands. They looked into Luka Doncic based on the pure fact that they had Dirk Nowitzki for the last 20 or so years, transition into another generational European player and Luka Doncic, and you traded away in what many seem to regard one of the worst trades in NBA history. So no matter what Nico Harrison did, no matter what vision he had, fans were going to be pissed. And I
Yeah.
think this opportunity, them being right now 3-8, kind of the writing was on the wall, and the Dumont family's like, look, we just lost our streak of like having 24 or 25 straight years of sellouts. Now it's affecting our banks. All of our fans are pissed. There's literally the lowest morale possible in this Dallas Mavericks organization. We have to cut ties. We
Yeah.
absolutely have to cut ties with Nico Harrison, and what seems like what could have been rightfully done probably the day after the trade, what could have been justifiably done during the summer, seemed to happen now. But I felt like it was more of an inevitability. It's just now you're like, okay, now we're really bad. This at least gives us some sort of opportunity to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing too, right? You look back at the whole situation, you ask yourself, you know, by not doing it back then, are you in a way kind of absolving yourself, talking about the Dumont family, of ties to the situation in terms of what your, you know, plot to play in the whole situation is, right? Like when you think about it, doing it now almost in a sense kind of shows your naivety to the situation, right? I was telling my girl earlier today because she saw it on TikTok and she was laughing and stuff like that, talking about how crazy everything is with the Nico Harrison thing because she's not familiar with the basketball world the way we are. But I kind of explained the timeline of events to her, and she's like, "And it took this long?" And I was like, "Well, that's the thing. It's crazy because if you go back to that time frame, all you have to do is Google Luka Doncic, and you know how important he is to that franchise, right? So for them to not have done anything back then shows that they had no idea the magnitude, the realistic issues that could come with making such a significant decision. And I think by doing it this late on, by doing it this kind of overreactionary to some of the other things that have been going on, because again, I don't believe 11 games is enough of a sample size to truly prove the issues. Now, some of the other things like the fans booing, the portable staircase, some of the other things you have to use in order to be able to protect this guy, that creates its own set of issues, of course. But if we're just talking about the on-court product, there's really not enough to prove whether Nico Harrison's move was right or wrong. I think logically, we all know where most stand in terms of whether or not he made the right decision. But as far as the on the court product, there's nothing throughout 11 games that proves or disproves because the roster he assembled essentially hasn't been healthy, right? So it puts
Yeah.
it in a weird position because they chose to do it at a time where you have to ask yourself now, like, what did it prove? Like, what does it prove? What happens next? What can they even do to put themselves in a position to re-salvage a fan base that isn't going to get Luka Doncic back, by the way? Because Luka said very clearly post Nico Harrison trade, he actually said he has no intentions of returning back there at any time. Now, of course, you say that actively within your first full season with the Los Angeles Lakers. You don't want to ruin the brand you're establishing right now within
For
that
sure.
franchise. But at the same time, I think that comes from a genuine place because regardless of whether Nico is there or not, it's the mere fact, TV. It's the mere fact that they didn't just trade him. They tried to slander my boy's name during, before, after, in between, and everything mixed in as a part of the smear campaign to make it justified or try to justify doing so.
And to do so the year after they made the finals.
That's a interesting nugget that always like it gets thrown out there, but it's important to kind of keep reiterating that because and there's 2 points actually, TV.
Yeah.
It's not just that they made the finals. The defense wins championship like statement will
Yeah, it was
forever it will
working.
forever be one of the most infamous phrases in Dallas Mavericks history because it may go over people's heads because they don't remember. TV, this was a top 5 defense going into the playoffs the year they went to the finals.
Oh yeah, no
That was
post
with Luka Doncic on the roster.
post PJ Washington Daniel Gafford trade. This was a top 5 defense post that trade. Like it was, they were good.
Can I ask you a question, TV? I think this is like a really important factor too, right? In terms of having the conversation about Nico Harrison, right? Look back at what Nico Harrison did that year specifically, right? You bring in Kyrie Irving, right? You got Kyrie. You're trying to make that work. You have a rough start to the season. Remember, it was this whole conversation around like, is the Luka Doncic Kyrie Irving thing working? Blah blah blah. They go to the trade deadline. They get Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. You got people on national media platforms saying, is getting Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington really enough of a needle mover? And me and you sat right here on this podcast and said, we got a weird feeling that they about to go off. We got a weird feeling that all they needed was 2 Energizer bunnies to come in and bring some life to this team. Daniel Gafford's a big-time rim runner, can give you shades of what Clint Capella gave James Harden back in Houston. You got P.J. Washington. Maybe you just needed a change of scenery. Anytime someone gets lost in purgatory with Charlotte, you got to wonder whether or not they got another gear they can reach, right? We had that same conversation right here on this podcast back then about those trades. And what they go on to do, they made themselves a little run. And then what was started out as a little run became a big run. And that big run led them all the way to the NBA Finals. And so you got to ask yourself, 2 years ago, Nico, you may have arguably had one of the best brands in basketball from the perspective of a GM in the NBA. You had one of the best basically year and a half mini move runs of anybody in recent memory in terms of making a few moves on the margins that maybe people didn't see the vision of first, but it all came together. Your brand just a year ago, just a year and a half ago, had you in that conversation where we're looking at you and maybe we're not doing like the Sam Presties of the world and stuff like maybe we're not doing that. But are we starting to slide you in that category where we're like, okay, he's more than just a former Nike executive. He's more than just somebody who's using the fact that he has connects as a way to get guys to come to his organization. Like, no, he's starting to really roster build. And a year and a half later, you essentially burned your roster down, starting with the key guy in the middle of all of it that made it work.
You killed the franchise. He killed a franchise with that move. And I think this whole thing of understanding Luka's impact on the team, understanding the success the Dallas Mavericks had in this Nico Harrison era, I think this goes to realize and pointing at ownership, especially with this Dumont family, and thinking like, this is what happens when you don't have minds of the sport starting from the very top.
Yes.
Because you've seen the reports. They were like, they saw this as an investment. Mark Cuban has went on multiple podcasts saying when he made the sale, these are not basketball people. These guys have no idea what they're getting into, but they're massive investors. They want to invest in an NBA team, but they know nothing about basketball.
Yes.
So when they come into this organization, see that the Dallas Mavericks go to the NBA Finals, they're probably thinking, oh, they were one of the 2 best teams in the league last year? Oh, this Nico Harrison guy must know like this guy's word has to be gospel at this point. So we're gonna trust everything he's able to do, and having that full 100% trust in Nico Harrison opened the door to his idea of, you know what, my ego, my ideas are bigger than what this team is, and also bigger than the brand of Luka Doncic, because I'm gonna try and big brain this. And say that, you know, and try and like build this under my vision, and you're gonna see this is how it's gonna work. Never mind trading away a generational 2 guard who gets compared to the likes of Michael Jordan and LeBron James. No.
Right.
My vision's gonna work. And not having that someone again, remember, the owners are the one who have to sign it off at the end. So they fully trusted what Nico Harrison was able to do.
Yeah.
And they just let it happen. And when you don't have that mind, especially coming from someone like Mark Cuban, who was fully, and I mean fully invested into the game of basketball, stuff like this is going to go into the cracks because you get someone like Nico Harrison who thinks he's bigger than the team and decides to make a franchise altering decision without having any second opinions or having someone like above him really talk him down from it. So this is what ends up happening. Now I feel like with the way that the fans responded, the way that the media is responding, Patrick Dumont in his early stint as a Mavericks owner is realizing, oh, Luka Doncic actually meant so much more than just a game of basketball to the city of Dallas. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, we didn't sell out a game for the first time in 25 years. Huh, I didn't realize that Luka was a big part of that. These guys just don't know. Truly, at the end of the day, these guys just don't know. They were so out of touch. They are so detached from reality. And stuff like this goes under the cracks, especially when you give your GM this full control. So as much as you're going to blame Nico Harrison, and in some ways you could say he's a scapegoat, but he brought this up to the ownership, and ownership didn't know any better and just fully trusted him.
Yeah.
So just as much as Nico Harrison is, the Dumont family cannot go unscathed here.
No, and I think that's the most important part too, TV, is like trying to maintain the understanding around this narrative that like there's no way it's just, oh, we apologize for Nico's actions. We're gonna do our best to restore the integrity of the friend. No, dude.
It is
I
only
said it
just
at the top of the show. All you have to do is Google Luka Doncic's name. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do to get
yeah.
even a brief understanding of what you just did, what you are signing off on, what you eventually chose to not only let happen, but let fly for so long that we got to the start of the NBA regular season, saw the play on the floor that I guess quote unquote proved Nico wrong, and now led you to a situation where you're firing a guy who essentially should have never had the choice in the beginning. Like the dude, like he like don't get me wrong. The mere like I said this to somebody the other day. How you were able to even bring the conversation to the Dumont family's doorstep is its own thing, right? Like what kind of like I know he's a former NBA a former Nike exec, so I know he's used to having to be in rooms with big corporate people and stuff like that. I know that's kind of his forte. But what kind of Jedi mind trick ability did you even have to use to get in the room with that topic on your mind? Let alone it get cleared. Let alone it get cleared. You know what I mean? And so that to me shows that like as much as they may want to portray this as like a Nico sent our franchise into a tailspin. No, you didn't do your research. You didn't
You didn't
gauge
do
the
a Google
public.
search. Like you
Yeah,
mentioned, you didn't do
yeah.
a Google search.
You didn't even do a Google search, let alone your research. Yeah, you didn't do a temperature check. Again, something that has to be reiterated. Luca didn't ask out. That has to be thrown out
Yep.
today too, because we remember as much as the NBA disgruntled star narrative tends to drive a lot of these these trade situations. Luka Doncic was not like he was not upset about a long-term situation with the Mavericks.
I know.
Like there's nothing about
No.
this that said that it made sense. That's the long-winded way of saying there's nothing about this that even remotely screams like, okay, this makes sense. No, there's none. There's none.
They need to have basketball minds in there, bro. They need to get
Yeah.
like some sort of team or something like that, just to educate these guys and honestly to make them understand now. This this whole situation is not going to be cured in a year. Just because you have Cooper Flag now, this is not going to be cured. We're seeing what Luka Doncic is doing with the Lakers right now, averaging what 38, 7, and 8 or whatever it is that he's
Yeah,
doing at the
it's
moment.
ridiculous.
It is
It's ridiculous.
absolutely ridiculous. So you could just look at every single Sportsnet highlight. You could look at every single sports page and see, oh yeah, no, Luka Doncic is just that guy. He's probably like one of the top 3 MVP candidates right now. So from what seemed like they were in the top of the world, crashed all the way to the bottom, and now you're watching your ex just absolutely dominate. As the fans knew he could do this. Mind you, that we all knew he could do this. It's just now
Yeah.
you gave him to one of the biggest franchises in the league. And Mavericks fans, I understand if you're still going to be sick, but now Nico Harrison is gone. I feel like now is just now about trying to rebuild that relationship. First, not even with the team itself, rebuilding that trust with the fans. And I think
Yeah.
that has to be the biggest thing here first you have to do.
Yes. Yes. That's gonna. I mean, not even the first thing. TV. That's the whole brand. That's the whole
Yeah.
brand left over,
Yes.
right? Or the excuse me, not the brand. The whole plan left over. This season is not about winning games, dog. It's not.
No.
It's not. I genuinely
We're
believe
far
that
past
this.
that. We are far past
No.
that.
This is about this team positioning themselves to build around Cooper Flag legitimately. Again, I said this earlier on in the podcast, and I'm gonna stand by this. I think as they continue on, there's already reports that say Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, trade block, no questions asked. They're gonna work with their teams. I actually just saw it on Twitter. I was going through Dallas Mavericks pages because I'm not gonna lie. Part of our commentary throughout this podcast, at least this section of the podcast, is being fueled just by some of the things that I'm hearing and learning from Dallas Mavericks fans and fan pages and things like that about their view on where this team is right now, right? And I genuinely believe that I don't think AD and Klay Thompson is where the buck stops. I think Najee Marshall should be on the block. I think PJ Washington might be on the block. I think
Daniel
Daniel
Gafford.
Crawford might be on the block.
Yeah.
I think if your name is not Derek Lively, Cooper Flag, and maybe like Max Christie, Jaden Hardy might have some staying power as well. But I would say those main three guys, if you're not Cooper Flag, Derek Lively, and Max Christie, I'm at least picking up the phone and seeing what you're worth right now. If I'm them.
Yes, 100%. They got to start doing it now. It's about the damage control has been done. You could only do what you can do, and that's remove Nico Harrison from your brand. Now it's about literally starting from ground zero. And remember, it could have been worse. They lucked into this number one pick. They were like
Yeah.
bottom, like they're in the bottom four odds of trying to get this number one pick, and they got it. So I don't want to, put sprinkles on a pile of doo doo right now. But at least they have Cooper Flag. At least you have something you can build off of. And they have
Yeah.
their pick this year, Jay. They might not have control of the 2027, 2028, 2029 picks, but they have control of their pick this year.
Yeah.
So who knows? So who knows where they can go from here? They just have to start again. They did the damage control. Now they got to build from here. Jay, though, like you mentioned, now it's time to start building around Cooper Flag. And the number one trade piece, and I truly believe this is the first thing this new Dallas Mavericks regime has to do, is trade
Uh-huh.
Anthony Davis. They have to move off of
Easily.
him.
Yeah,
They have to.
easily.
And this is where the trade machine comes in. Jay, I have two Anthony Davis trades here, which I find pretty interesting. And I'm going
Okay.
to bring it up to you, and we're going to discuss what do you think this is a good fit? Where do you think this is a good trade? For both parties. This is going to be obviously two teams. I didn't want to go with the whole three-team trades. I've seen some, and I was like, this is just going to hurt my brain. Let's try and go for a straight team-for-team trade of Anthony Davis. And here's the first one that really caught my eye, and probably the one I'm latching onto the most. Jay, let's send Anthony Davis to the Atlanta Hawks. Let's send him to the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for Asa Newell, Kristaps Porzingis, Luke Kennard, and two future first-round picks. Now, obviously, Anthony Davis, we know he's the top 75 player. We know he's an NBA Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But this is bottom level sort of value that he's probably had in his career so far, especially with the whole thing that's going on with his injuries too, with the whole calf problems. Should Atlanta take this risk? And is this a trade should the Dallas Mavericks be somewhat considering?
So it's tricky because it feels like you're already giving up on Asa Newell and you're handing over Kristaps Porzingis, who
Expiring deal.
they
Expiring
are
deal.
going into they are going into the season with the intention, or at least with the intention of holding off on extension talks. They enter the season basically in agreement to a certain extent that there was no real need to have true extension conversations when he just got to the team. So there's no real ties to him long term. Asa maybe so, but you wonder about how much tick he's gonna get playing behind a Kristaps Porzingis and Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, excuse me, as
Yes,
well.
exactly.
So that puts it in a weird position there. You get a real true defensive rim protector to be ahead of Onyeka Kongwu. It's like Atlanta. Maybe you feel better about this if Trey Young were on the floor. But I feel like the biggest thing, and it depends on when you're able to make this trade too, right? Because I think a lot of acquiring AD has a lot to do with what do you plan on doing with Trey Young long term. Because remember, he's extension eligible as well. And he came into the season without contract extension conversations pushing forward. And I don't think you make an Anthony Davis trade if Trey Young isn't a part of your future long term, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. So I think you almost have to have one happen first for the other to make sense. Otherwise, I think the Anthony Davis trade alone will indicate, oh yeah, Trey Young's getting an extension. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. As opposed to if Trey Young was already extended, we'd be looking around asking ourselves, who can we get to pair up with Trey Young to have a real
Yeah.
star 1-2 punch? So I think that it really just depends on what the Atlanta Hawks' long-term plans are related to Trey Young. I think if they plan on keeping Trey, I actually don't hate the trade that much because I think that Anthony Davis gives them a defensive anchor better than anybody they've had in the Trey Young era. Pair that with Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson and Nikhil Alexander Walker, like yo, that would be insane. But if the plan is not to keep him, I don't know if you need to make that kind of swing right now.
Yeah, no, this is 100% on if you want to keep Trey Young for the long term. This type of a deal, you're making sure, okay, we are locking ourselves to Trey Young because we want to keep him long term and we want to make sure that we have someone who we have years of control over, which Anthony Davis
Yes.
would have, I think, what, 2 or 3 years left on his deal.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have a good amount of time with him and Trey Young. I don't mind the package if this is what you're giving up. Obviously, with the Kristaps Porzingis situation, like you mentioned, there's no long term commitment there. It's an expiring contract, which in the Dallas Mavericks cases probably what you want right now. You want some
Right.
expiring contracts on that team. You do get 2 first round picks to kind of make up for some of the lost draft capital that you had over these last couple years. Again, I don't mind what they're giving up, but I would feel a lot more confident in this trade if Trey Young was there long term and then you kind of know what you have. Because Anthony Davis, Jalen Johnson front court actually sounds real tasty to me. I think that's a pretty damn good front court. Then you have the perimeter defense of a Dyson Daniels and all that. I like it. In terms of a fit, in terms of a basketball team, I like it. And I mean, Kristaps Porzingis, he already has his own injury issues as well. I mean, it's not like you're not gonna
True.
miss on too much with Anthony Davis, who probably won't play 60 games. But at least you're gonna have a top five power forward, top five center in the game.
Yeah.
I think it's worth the risk, but also I'd feel a lot more comfortable with this trade if Trey Young was locked up for the long term. All right, the second trade. Jay, do you want to go more realistic or do you want to go a little crazy?
Let's go crazy. Since we're only doing like two or three of these for AD, we might as well have one that's a little nuts.
Okay, Jay, I'm gonna send him back to the Bulls. I'm gonna send him home to the Bulls. Oh,
I,
and
I
here's the trade.
I had it coming. I had it coming. And if
And
it's the
the-
trade package I think it is, bro, it's an automatic hell no from the top rope, bro. If it's the one I think it is, because I've seen a handful of these packages all dang day. I've had people sending me Twitter posts and stuff. If it's what I think it is, automatically no. But let me hear you out first.
I don't think it's the ones that you've been looking at because I feel like you'd be a lot more on board with this.
Okay.
Nikola Vucevic, Zach Collins, Isaac Okoro, 3 first round picks.
Hmm.
Again, how much do you believe in this young core? How much do you believe in Josh Giddey
Yeah.
to pair him up with Anthony Davis? I know what you mean. I've seen some trades that include Kobe White. I've seen some
Yes.
trades,
Yes. Which is
I've-
crazy.
which is kind of crazy. But I'm doing you a solid. You get to keep Kobe White. You get to keep. I don't know how much you want to keep P. Willie, but P. Willie's still on your team. But Anthony Davis to your Chicago Bulls. I want to hear your thoughts on it because it's going for you. It's going to you. But it's okay, I guess.
I feel like the one thing I'm a little worried about in a trade like that is I feel like we're not taking into consideration that Nikola Vucevic has been hooping.
Hoop and
Like
hoop.
like truly hooping lately, right? Like we gotta really put some respect
Oh
on
no,
what Nikola Vucevic has done over the last 2 seasons. This 40% 3-point shooting has been relatively consistent. He's
bro had
been
a game
big
winner
time
this
on
season, didn't he? He had a
yeah.
game. Yeah, I remember he had a game winner this
I
season.
mean, he's been consistent on the defensive glass. I mean, he's been solid. Like if this is goes back to the whole situation back with Alex Caruso. Like, could you get 2 second? I mean, could you get 2 first round picks for him? And they actually whiffed on taking 2 first round picks for him to
Well,
eventually get Josh Giddey, which is looking more like a better trade than it looked like at the time.
mhm.
But really, really, Anthony Davis to me, I feel like is a much different conversation than you know, early 20-year-old can develop as a franchise cornerstone piece, Josh Giddey. This is what, age 32 going into age 33 season Anthony Davis? I feel like you as the Bulls should not have to give up that much for Anthony Davis when also factoring in just how good Vooch has been. And if it was just this season, you would say short sample size, throw your hands up and go, it's not the worst idea in the world. But it spans back to last year. It spans back to last year. And it makes you really wonder, like, if you're going to trade Vooch, because we talked about this on the podcast before the season started, like, would the Bulls, knowing that Nikola Vucevic is an expiring contract this summer, would they let him just walk, or will they try their best to get something for him to maximize his value while it's probably at the best that it's probably been since him making it into Chicago, right? For that to turn into Anthony Davis, I think a season or two ago, that would have sounded like a very rejoicing statement. I think now you look at it and you say, is it a full upgrade? Is it a full upgrade? Because I
It's
don't really know, TV. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not trying to disrespect Anthony Davis, but at the same time, we have to, because you have to, and when I say full upgrade, I say because you have to take the full totality in. Is Anthony Davis a far better player at the center position than Nikola Vucevic? Of course. How many games of it is he going to be better though?
what I was gonna say.
You know what I mean? How many games of the season is Anthony Davis going to be a better player than Nikola Vucevic? So that's the question. Because if they both share the floor, I'm willing to concede he's the better talent, even at his advanced age, because Nikola Vucevic is at advanced age. What I'm saying is, one's been relatively available dating back to his early start of his career with the Orlando Magic. Anthony Davis has played more than 60 games, maybe 3 times in his entire career. So what risk are you truly taking? What risk are you really absolving yourself, or are you putting yourself into? Are you taking the risk of Anthony Davis in its totality? Are you taking the risk of saying, I'd rather get something than get nothing for Nikola Vucevic? Those are two sides of the same coin. Are you simply sending Vooch to Dallas because you don't want to lose him for nothing? Or do you genuinely believe that even with the injury concerns, that Anthony Davis is worth any kind of price that the Dallas Mavericks ask for? I'm just being real, bro. I don't know, man. I don't know, man.
Take away the teams,
Oh,
leave
Lord.
talent for talent. Zach Collins, Nikola Vucevic, Isaac Okoro, and 3 first-round picks for Anthony Davis. Not a bad trade. Just looking at talent. Now we bring into context. Dallas, fine. You get 3 first-round picks. That is as much as you can ask for Anthony Davis right now. That is the absolute max you're probably going to get. You're not going to get the 5 first-round picks that Desmond Bain got. You're not going to get.
Uh-uh.
You're not going to get any sort of thing like that. You get an expiring contract in Nikola Vucevic. Sure, you don't get a young talent, but at least you got the 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
If you're the Bulls, and one of the things here, you want to bring in your hometown guy, Jay. This man's from Illinois.
I literally just saw Dwayne Wade and Bulls tweet that got reposted on my feed, and I'm just getting upset. Like, I literally, as we were having the conversation, I see him pop up, and they're like, when your Chicago native wants to come to the Bulls, but he's way past his prime, and it's just a picture of Dwayne Wade in a Bulls jersey, and I'm sitting here like, dude, I can't, dude, I
From the Bulls,
can't do it, TV.
from the Bulls' perspective, please don't do this. I'm
Please.
sorry.
I
Please don't.
know Noah Essengay can't get on the floor. I know. We have to deal with that at a later date. I know. I know
No,
Josh
he's
Giddey
my
is hurt.
guy. I want him to do well.
I know Josh Giddey is hurt. I know that we've lost the last 4 straight games. I understand. TV, I said on this podcast I didn't think 6-1 was real. I told y'all. I let y'all know on the podcast that it wasn't
Hey,
gonna happen.
hey,
It wasn't
look,
gonna
dude. Hey,
stick.
look. The Bulls and the Raptors are the same record right now. I'm happy
Come
to say
on,
that.
man. I told
Uh,
y'all on the podcast 6-1 wasn't gonna stick. I told y'all. You don't counteract that by saying, you know what? Here's how we fix it. We go get Anthony Davis. You know what Anthony Davis is gonna do? This is gonna be such a shot. I'm so sorry in advance, AD. Anthony Davis is gonna come into Chicago with the same walking boot that Jalen Brunson left out of the
no.
other night against the Orlando Magic. That's how we're gonna get AD off the plane, bro. On crutches, bro. Golly. Golly, I can't, TV. I can't
Uh,
do it, dog. I can't
uh,
do it.
hey, you chose a crit.
Please don't do it.
The-
Chicago, please don't do it. I
Uh,
saw on podcast,
yeah,
the Run It Back podcast with like
yeah,
Boogie Cousins and
yeah.
Lou Williams and stuff. They had John Wall come on the show. John Wall says he's hearing AD won Chicago. What? When was John Wall an agent?
That's how I feel
What?
about Boogie, bro. Yo, whoever comes on Boogie's show thinks there's some sort of like reporter or agent or something like that, bro. I
Come
don't know.
on.
You chose the chaos pill, and I tried to send your
Clearly.
hometown boy back. Don't worry. The other trade that this team I was about to go into, we might bring him up again in the near future. But yeah,
Oh
any of
God.
those two trades, we're gonna move on to the next topic soon. But any of these two trades for Anthony Davis, let us know what you guys think down below. Are these any good ones? Are there any other teams that you think would want to go for Anthony Davis? I mean, it's super tough. You have to make a $54 million or something like that just to even try to get him on your team. So it's going to be a tall task. I don't think there's even like that many teams that have the assets in order to do it. But let's see. If you have any other better Anthony Davis trade ideas, let us know down below. But Jay, this is not only the guy that's been around the trade machine a lot lately, because we're gonna move over to Memphis and
Yeah.
this whole saga. I mean, like we could have. The funny thing is, Jay, we could have talked about this in the last episode, and I think we brought this up that maybe we could talk about it because this is when the stuff was all coming together. But now we're 10 days past that, and I feel like the situation has gotten worse because John Morant clearly, and
Yeah.
I mean clearly, is checked out of Memphis.
Yeah.
You can tell he's not having a great year. Bro thinks he's a jump shooter now and taking like hella amount of jumpers.
Yeah.
This guy's doing the whole Jimmy Butler end of last year, Vince Carter at the end of his Toronto Raptors tenure, where he just won't attack, he won't dunk, and then when he's down by 30 points in his last game, this man is smiling at the end of the third quarter, even though his team is getting absolutely demolished. Jay, I want to hear your thoughts on the whole John Morant situation. Obviously, there's a lot of rifts between him and the coaches. We've seen the comments in the media. I just want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing when you look at the John Morant situation is there's a part of you that understands, and there's a part of you that's questioning what comes next. Because as we learned from Damian Lillard and a handful of others, the grass is not always greener on the other side when you make these kind of, pouting moves and put yourself in position to get moved from a franchise that's done you pretty right for the longest time, right? And for John Morant, the issue, for those who are not very aware, is that the new head coach that was instated after the Taylor Jenkins firing is somebody who comes from a European play style. What does that mean? They play in sprints. That means they play in short rotation, or excuse me, extended rotations. They play in spurts and stints, which it means that they have their guys play almost platoon style in 4 to 5 minute intervals. And we know for an NBA superstar, It's about rhythm. For most NBA high caliber players, it's about rhythm. Being on the floor 7, 8, 9+ minutes of just figuring out their flow within the game. And Ja Morant is one of those caliber of players that kind of needs to kind of see himself through the game, right? And so the coaching style that he has introduced isn't really conducive with Ja Morant being able to play the way he wants to play. Something that's helped him be successful for the longest of his career, something that's allowed him to be an all-star, a near all-NBA caliber player, and somebody who just a few seasons ago, before a lot of off-the-court debacles were coming afoot, was a dude who we were having conversations as being like the next best point guard behind like Steph Curry in terms of the rankings of the top guys at the position, you know, just as early as 2 seasons ago. So that's the biggest issue, is that they don't see eye to eye from a coaching philosophy standpoint. So now the question you have to ask yourself is, all right, Ja, you went out because you want to go somewhere where you can play your style of basketball. Where is it? The names that come up are interesting because, ironically, although the platoon style aspect of it won't be the same, the up-tempo pacing style of it is. Most of the teams that you actually hear Ja Morant associated with right now are teams that are top 10 in pace of play right now. And it makes you wonder, so Ja, even if we do move you, is our play style going to be conducive to you feeling like you could be successful and return back to that top 3, top 5 point guard in the league status that you were once at? Because TV, quite frankly, the entire league is kind of getting hip to playing this more up-tempo style. We got the Orlando Magic ranked top 9, top 10 in pace of play this season. And they're running out a jumbo package lineup dang near every night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it makes you wonder, where even is the right spot for Ja Morant when you pair the fact that he's somebody that already has a little bit of a tarnished image, and you have to take that in as a franchise. He's someone that has declined statistically, and this isn't just this season. This has been something where I've seen the graphic on Twitter a million times. His rim finishing stats have gotten worse every season over the last 3 years. His finishing around the rim has gotten worse every single season, and he's not. We already know he's not a high-level three-point shooter. Him getting to the rim is his best asset as a talent when paired with his athleticism. So what works? That's the question. What works where you can get Ja Morant, reel in the personality that comes with it, and maximize the talent to get him back playing to the Rookie of the Year status he was at once upon a time, the top 3, top 5 guard in the NBA status he was at once upon a time. Because those are the 2 feats you're taking on if you trade for Ja Morant. You're repairing not just his image, you're repairing his play.
Yes. This whole thing feels like just wrong place, wrong time for Ja Morant. Especially, I mean, like you mentioned, peak Ja Morant was a early 20-year-old, like an early 20s. Next up, probably top 3 point guard. People thought him and like Trae Young, all these guys coming up, were gonna be like the next guard of the NBA when Steph Curry was gone. But over these last 2 or 3 years, you had the off the court issues. You had the constant injuries.
Yep.
So Ja Morant, the explosive guy, the guy that you want leading your team going forward, being your lead point guard, feels like a distant memory even at this point, Jay. So whoever does trade for Ja Morant, you got to remember you're not getting the version that people fully believed in, the one who was a borderline All NBA first team level point guard at some point. People were having those conversations.
Yeah.
You're getting a version, like you mentioned, there's gonna have to be some, holding accountability issues, with the off the court stuff, but also trying to get him to the best play on the court. And are you going to be able to get the same explosive Ja Morant sort of thing? Because we've seen it in 2 ends. We've seen Vince Carter and Jimmy Butler do this, and then they arrive on the new team. They act all spry, they act all fresh and all that. So maybe it does need a change of scenery.
Mm.
But then we do see other situations, like you mentioned with the Damian Lillard, where you make the trade, and then you're just not the same sort of player. So it's gonna really go one of those two directions. I feel like as more and more of that old Grizzlies guard starts to go further away, that it just like the Grizzlies' current style just starts to fall further and further than what Ja can really thrive in.
Mm.
So I feel like a divorce is in play. But the thing is, like you mentioned, what teams are willing to take the risk, and what assets do these teams have that the Grizzlies are willing to take? Because looking at the landscape right now, I don't know if there's like any trade packages. There might be a chance that they just want to just hold on to John Morant until the offseason just so they have a bit more flexibility with the type of trades they can make. Because right now, Jay, even like when I'm about to give you these couple trade packages, not looking the best so far if you're the Memphis
Mm.
Grizzlies.
Mm. Mm.
But I will say, just because they just hired this new coach in, just because you could tell that they're trying to go to a different style,
Mm.
it feels like they're like when you look at the front office, they're trying to move away from the John Morant style. There's some teams that are willing to are really trying to cater to the superstar and all that. But I think with all the stuff that's happening in the last few years, the Grizzlies seem to be more and more distant from John Morant being a part of their long term future. And someone like Jaren Jackson Jr., you already paid like the big money to. I think they're like, okay, we have someone here that could be a number two or a number three eventually for whoever we build around, and we know that he has the chops on both ends. We're just still trying to find a number one, and we're willing to move off Jaw to do that. So I think it's gonna be really interesting for the Memphis Grizzlies. They have some nice young talent over there. We know that they're able to find these guys. I mean, freaking Cedric Howard has looked phenomenal to start the season. I'm super happy with the way he's panning out. But I think more than anything, this marriage of John Moran and the Grizzlies seems like it's up for an inevitable split, which is really
Mm.
unfortunate because this Grizzlies team used to be one of those most liked teams in the NBA, one of the most fun teams to watch. And slowly but surely, we started getting away from that fun Grizzlies team, and now we're at a point where, yeah, John Moran is not even seen as like close to that guy that he was a couple years ago.
Yeah, facts. I think that's one of the biggest things that's hurting him too in this whole process is, they have a saying that tends to be more applicable to the NFL, but I think it applies to the NBA just as much as that sometimes talent can overbeat the drama because at the end of the day, if you're a good enough basketball player, we'll deal with all the extra stuff as long as you go ahead and bring us W's on a night to night basis. John Morant, the regression, talent wise, is what's making this conversation louder than it should be. Because truthfully, if he were producing, if this team were winning, if he were doing what he needed to do statistically to show that he's still that all-star caliber player, he's that all NBA caliber guard, I think it would be a harder conversation to even discuss moving off of someone like John Morant. And as far as we're concerned, all reports indicate, as of right now, that the Memphis Grizzlies front office is not enthusiastic about any idea of moving off of John Morant. The issue is, as you mentioned at the top, the pot just might just be getting too hot. The boiling water is starting to boil over, and then you have to start asking yourself, you might want to hold on to John Morant because of everything that he means to the franchise, so on and so forth. Kind of similar to a lot of the Luka Doncic stuff we talked about earlier. Maybe not on the
Yeah.
same scale, of course, but very similarly. But is the juice worth the squeeze? The biggest difference in this situation versus the Luka Doncic thing is that John Morant might actually want out versus Luka didn't, and he got moved. John Morant may actually want out. The question is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to accept for John Morant, knowing that even if he's disgruntled, he's probably at worst, the second most talented player on your team. And that's at worst, behind probably Jaren Jackson Jr. And I think that John Morant, at the peak of his powers, is a better player. But I would say even right now, talent-wise, is at worst their second most talented player on the team. What are you willing to give up on that regardless of all the drama that's going on? And if so, what kind of package are you going to ask for to make it worthwhile of doing something that extreme?
I'm glad you asked, Jay, because as we did for Anthony Davis, we shall do the same with John Morant. I got
Yeah.
two trade packages here, and we're gonna talk it out and see whether or not this is something that the Grizzlies should be interested in, or the other team that they're actually involved with in making this sort of trade.
Okay.
And Jay, the first trade I have up for you is a weird one because we don't get these very often in the NBA, Jay.
Okay.
This is just a one-for-one swap.
Okay.
John Morant for Trey Young.
Huh.
John Morant for Trey Young. Remember, we mentioned this when we talked about the Atlanta. I think when we mentioned the Kristaps Porzingis trade earlier, for Anthony
Yeah.
Davis. John Morant has some years under control.
Yeah.
Obviously, Trey Young, they haven't really started the contract extension talks yet. In theory, it's a better fit him and Jaren Jackson Jr. for the long term.
Yeah.
You can maybe convince yourself if you're the Memphis Grizzlies to go for that extension. And then if you're the Atlanta Hawks, maybe a couple years of John Morant to see how it goes with this team. Who knows?
Mm.
How you feel about the trade?
So people are gonna think I'm being funny when I say this. The reason why I fear a trade like this has more to do with off the court than on the court, if that makes any sense. Um, and I mean that for John Morant specifically because of the fact that we understand. I'm saying this both seriously and jokingly, but we understand from a community standpoint what the Atlanta, Georgia area could be like. As somebody that is a Georgia native, I can tell you right now that there are some interesting places to be, and Lou Williams also knows some interesting places to be. If that puts into perspective what I'm trying to get at here. And that's not to say that John Morant hasn't learned from his mistakes. I can also say that John Morant has been told on a multitude of different situations to make an adjustment to his actions, and then he finds a reworking way to do similar things just in a different manner, a la going from the gun to the grenade, right? So he always finds a loophole. Shout out John Morant. Celebrations are fire, though. But I worry about the idea of alienating another young team if you're John Morant. If you're a front office that's acquiring John Morant, right? You have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is a little bit more seasoned within the league, but you have a young player in Dyson Daniels, who had a breakout year last season. Jalen Johnson, still a youthful player, still trying to figure out his footing, but just averaged 20 and 10 before going down with injury last year. Onyeka Okongwu, young, still trying to find his footing, despite the fact that it feels like he's been in the league a lot longer than he actually has. He's somebody who is still trying to really establish himself as a long-term cornerstone center in this league. Zachary Risachet, second year in the NBA. When you go down the list, the Atlanta Hawks are still such a youthful team. And I think you worry about whether or not bringing in someone like John Morant, coming off of the situation that he would be coming off of with his dispute with management, his issues with playing a more depth-filled lineup and things of that nature, whether or not that's actually more of a hurt than a help to what it is that Atlanta's trying to build right now. Again, I do think, similar to what I said with the Anthony Davis thing, another thing to take in consideration is trading Trey Young is an indication that you had no intentions of truly extending him. Something that I don't think a lot of Atlanta Hawks fans will be hype about, to be honest with you. So I think that's the one part where I worry more than anything. But I think from a play style standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. Their ability to put pressure on the rim would be insane. John Morant, Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a three-point shooter. Dyson Daniels is somebody who's a very good slasher off ball. Zachary Risachet is a middle of the pack three-point shooter, but has his nights where he can be really lights out from back there too. You just wonder, man. You just wonder if, again, and we're moving franchise icon for franchise icon to a certain extent too, right? That's what makes these things so tricky. I don't know, man. I just don't know if Atlanta. Let me rephrase it. I don't know if John Morant's ready for Atlanta just as much as I don't know if Atlanta's ready for him. And that's what makes it kind of a tricky situation.
Yeah, it's a weird trade because obviously we don't get these one-for-ones very often. These are one of the more rare trades in the NBA where you just do superstar for superstar just straight up. In theory, John Morant with this young team, you could see them playing the fast-paced sort of way that he wants, and you know that this team is going to be very point guard heavy because we've seen what they are with Trae Young. Obviously, he doesn't have the shooting ability of Trae Young, but in terms of commanding a team, in terms of being that floor general, we know what John Morant can be.
Mm.
But shooting wise, fit wise, off the court stuff there, of course, in Atlanta, like you mentioned, it's going to be an odd fit, but it also for an Atlanta Hawks team who again hasn't extended Trae Young yet.
Mm.
They can look at someone like with John Morant, where it's like, okay, we have enough years on him where we can see how he is with this team, and then try to move forward with that, either trading him somewhere else or giving him an extension. So it just basically gives them a bit more time. What they're doing with this trade is buying them a bit more time to try and figure out what they want this team to look like long term. If you're the Memphis Grizzlies, obviously this whole John Morant situation this season, last season has been a lot of like, off the court noise that you don't want. But you also get to see for the remainder of this season what a Trae Young, Jaren Jackson Jr. duo can look like. It's
Yeah.
not like they don't have the defensive pieces around them to make it work. Freaking Cedric Coward is on their team. Jalen Wells, who's a really solid defender over there. Zach Edey, when he's healthy, could really help out on the defensive end. In theory, it could work. But at the same time, it's these one-for-one swap deals are weird. I could see it helping both teams, but I also just don't think that this type of trade is going to be in the cards for both of them either. It's a really weird situation. I am intrigued by it though. I will say, as someone who's like an outsider for both these teams, I am intrigued by this trade. I like the idea of at least seeing a little bit of what you got with a Trae Young, Jaren Jackson front court, and of course you want to see enough where you're like, okay, we can extend Trae Young long term. But I don't know. Atlanta Hawks, I feel like at this one, I don't know about you, but it feels like this is more of like a buying time trade if they do this one more than
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
I think it's again, I think it's also an admission that you don't think you can win with Trae Young at the highest level moving forward.
yeah,
I think it's a weird thing to move off of Trae Young and then move off of a descending point guard in John Morant, because I think Trae Young has been consistently elevating over the last handful of seasons. I mean, he literally just led the league in assists last year while
yeah,
averaging 20 points per game, right? So Trae Young is, if not been moving upward, he's at least been consistent as opposed to John Morant's trajectory statistically and off the court has, damaged his brand in the negative direction. It puts you in a weird spot where you have to ask yourself, like, again, not only are you're buying time, you're buying time, but for what reason? And number two, are you positioning yourself to then hopefully actually be better down the line? Because John Morant might not be a better option down the line either
exactly.
compared to what Trae Young is.
It's a risk. It's 100% a risk trying to bring in John Morant, trying to rebuild his image, but also understanding, okay, we at least have a couple years under contract to make this work.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a risk they're willing to take. Obviously, trading away an expiring contract basically in Trae Young to do so. I don't see this happening, but if there were to be a one-for-one trade, I could see, I could somewhat weirdly see this happening. It's definitely an interesting one. We want to hear your thoughts down below on it, but yeah, one-for-one trade definitely very rare in this case. Jay, for the second trade,
Okay.
we're gonna go back to the Chicago. I'm just kidding.
I can't, bro. I
But
can't.
I
I
saw
can't,
Chicago Bulls
bro.
trade, by the way. I saw Chicago Bulls trade, and I was just kind of
Oh, I've
laughing.
seen them. I've seen them all, TV. I've seen them all, brother. You ain't gotta
Oh,
get.
no
You
way.
ain't gotta tell me. You might even send me one after the podcast is over. Look, I'm not shocked by anything at this point, dude.
Don't worry,
I
Jay.
really am not.
Don't worry. I'm gonna make it a bit more tough on my end because I'm gonna do the Toronto Raptors for this one. Um,
Oh, okay,
this has been kind
okay.
of floating around. Obviously, divisive opinion. Obviously, in someone like John Morant coming into the team. But the trade is, and this is basically being based off the fact that if you guys haven't seen the reports, they're predicting that this John Morant trade package is going to be like Kyrie Irving-esque. And if you don't know what the Kyrie Irving trade was to Dallas, let's just say that the Dallas Mavericks fleeced the Brooklyn Nets out of Kyrie Irving. Because all they
Mm,
had to give up was Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith.
yep.
That literally was always given up. I'm not going to
Yeah.
say it's going to be like that for John Morant. Obviously, it's a difference of age. And Kyrie Irving, honestly, at that time wasn't great in the eyes of NBA media and fans alike as well. So this trade for the Toronto Raptors, it's going to look a bit weirder now especially because this guy's has definitely been playing very well over the last few games. But here's the trade offer we have. We have Emmanuel Quickly, Grady Dick, in a 2029 top 10 protected first round pick. I want to hear your thoughts as an outsider first. I'll give my thoughts as like obviously a fan as a Raptor fan as well. But what do you think of that sort of package that the Grizzlies can get for John Morant?
Emmanuel Quickly, Grady Dick, and what was the pick?
A 2029 top 10 protected first round pick.
This might sound crazy, but I think if you're Toronto, you like actually run. You actually like run towards this. Like quickly. You move very no pun intended, but like I think you actually get on your high horse and make sure this gets cleared before they try to double back. Truthfully. And the reason why I say that it starts with Emmanuel Quickly. He ain't worth the price tag, TV, and hasn't been since the price tag got signed. He
Yeah,
just hasn't came together the way it needs to for not only him to really match the value of that contract, which is like what, like 30 M's a year? Like
32 M's, 32.
it's hefty
It is a
for
hefty.
what he's bringing to the table or not bringing to the table. And I think Grady, in an interesting way, I think you almost have to do that because of where Emmanuel Quickly has been, especially offensively. I think you have to almost throw someone like Grady Dick in, not just because I think it helps with the money, right? But also I think because of the fact that you need something to give them long-term upside because Emmanuel Quickly, if I'm not mistaken, also only has like 2 more years left on his contract,
3 more
as
years.
far as I'm concerned. Is it third? Is three? Okay, eh.
Eh.
So you might actually be using Grady Dick to make up for the fact that Emmanuel Quickly is a bad contract, and so you're absorbing a bad contract as Memphis, and getting Grady Dick as the high upside paired with a pick what's that, 3 4 years from now?
2029. So that's like
Four, yeah, so
four,
about
4 years.
3 years, basically,
4 years.
yeah, about, yeah. So yeah, I think if you're Toronto, look, Ja's a better distributor by far. His ability, regardless of his finishing ability at the rim as of the last 2 to 3 years, his ability to get to the rim at a high rate is something that matches very well with what you guys do well in terms of getting to the basket, offensive rebounding, crashing the glass, things of that nature. That helps. The up-tempo play style you guys have played with, again, I mentioned this earlier in the pod, a lot of teams are moving to this playing more high pace. Memphis is one of them. Toronto is another one of them. Can he assimilate to that? Can he be cool with that? I think that he'll have a much longer leash as far as being on the floor a lot longer than 4 and 5 minute stints like he's having in Memphis, and maybe that's all he needs. Now, TV again, and this is where the Toronto native aspect has to kick in, and I'll have to ask it to you this way: people tend to be a little choosy about how they feel about Toronto, both as a place to play for and to go play at. John Morant, do you think it's a good fit for him personality wise?
People are gonna make a joke saying that because of Canada's gun control laws, maybe there's something that John Morant needs. But I digress. I digress. But
TV
it,
did that all by himself, dog. That was crazy. That was nuts. Yo.
no, I seen I seen all the jokes, bro. I've seen all.
Yo.
But John Morant to to the Toronto Raptors. Let's be honest. This feels like a trade that the Toronto Raptors would do in the sense where you see a disgruntled superstar, someone who's at their lowest value right now, and
Yeah.
try and pick up the scraps because we're not going to get superstars any other way. We might look into it into the draft, a la Scotty Barnes with the fourth overall pick, or we have to do what we did with Brandon Ingram last year and pick up the broken scraps from a New Orleans Pelicans team who wasn't going to give him that extension.
Mm.
Same idea here with John Morant. Now, in terms of how about the package giving up, it's weird right now because obviously Emmanuel Quickly, first 5 games of the season, rough, 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 rough. Couldn't get any
Mm.
rougher for Emmanuel Quickly. Over these last 5 games, this is the Emmanuel Quickly that we more kind of like were ready to see. An 18, 5 and 7 sort of guy on 40% from three, near 50% from the field. He's been
Yeah.
great. But like you mentioned, that price tag ain't it for Emmanuel Quickly. Even as someone who's
No.
a big fan of Emmanuel Quickly and wants him to do well, 3 more years of this is just not. I don't think it's a great sustainable option. Now, do I think that he'll make like his play could maybe alleviate it a bit? I don't know if he'll be able to play up to it, but can he still be a good player? Yes. But again, the price tag is tough. The other thing why I'm even considering this trade is because Grady Dick is coming off the books next year, and I don't
Yeah.
want to be the one to decide that market because I'm already iffy on Grady Dick as a basketball player, seeing him play in the Raptors uniform these last few years.
Mm,
Out as someone who's a shooter, he could be very inconsistent. I love the off-ball movement that he's been able to do, but again, the consistency on the offensive end is something that I have my hard time, wanting to commit to long term, especially because we have a pipeline of shooting guards coming through, especially with Jacoby Walter, Elijah Martin, all these guys coming
yeah.
up, and who are willing to play hard for every minute they have on the basketball court and have the defensive chops that Grady Dick, who has shown that he doesn't have that in the last few years. But fit wise, this team already is struggling with shooting, and adding John Morant and removing two of our better shooters in our roster gonna be tough. It's a tough
Yeah.
sell for this team, and even harder for Darko, who generates a lot of open threes, but it's gonna have even less guys to be able to hit those wide open threes. It's an iffy situation. Sometimes people will say get the talent in there and just make it work after. But it feels like with more and more of these trade options coming up, it's just making it even harder and harder for this lineup to make even more sense.
Yeah.
And of course, the off the court issues too. Like, I'm gonna say as a Raptor fan, if this was even a year ago, even a year
Okay.
ago, I would be a bit more open to this trade. But with already like the weird construction of this roster,
Mm,
with already the lack of shooting, they're already and trying to give up even more draft capital, which Raptor fans know giving up some sort of draft capital over the years has been kind of the Raptors' MO and all this, and it's been kind of tough seeing like some of our picks go away. But as much as talent John Morant is, I can't fully embrace that idea of bringing him into the team, even if it's for that package. I will say no, just because I just don't want to have to be the one to figure it out. I don't want Tarko to be the one to have to figure out the rest of the stuff.
facts.
Because, so, as much as the talent is there, and maybe a quickly contract, obviously you don't want to you don't want to like be attached to it long term. I think that if there's going to be any sort of trade that's happening for the Toronto Raptors this year, and trust me, there's going to be a trade that's happening, I just wouldn't want it to be John Morant at this moment. So if I'm the
Mm-mm.
Raptors, I would say no. But I understand your sentiments with the opportunity to get off the Emmanuel Quickly contract and having someone as talented as John Morant, and I understand why some teams might say yes to that. But as a Raptors fan and seeing like the way like things are already working out right now, it's already such a tough puzzle to solve right now. Adding John Morant to that is just gonna I don't know it's gonna like melt the brains of Raptor fans and Raptor staff alike.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I think it's one of those things where the fit. I think it goes back to something you said in the early portion of your explanation, which is like a year ago, this team would have been clamoring for something like this,
Yeah.
right? I think a year ago, this would have been like this would have been a crazy move to be able to do this, still have Brandon Ingram, still have Scotty, still have RJ, and you pair John Morant with all of that. With the play style that they have, the defensive versatility they have in terms of all the wings and length and stuff they can put around Ja, shot maker and Brandon Ingram next to Ja, floor spacing. When you have somebody like RJ Barrett who's shooting the three relatively well so far this season, Scotty looks like he's on demon time again this year, which is good for him, right? So a year ago, I think Raptors fans would have really thought this one over. I think this season, I think I think maybe some would still do it, but I think it comes with a lot more of a pause, kind of like you're showing now. I think it comes with a lot more pause, not a lot more of a pause, because even if John Morant is, because John Morant is clearly more of an upgrade from Emmanuel Quickly than like our conversation with him versus Trey Young with Atlanta, right?
Yes.
But the question still is, what are you getting though? And I'm not even talking about off the court in that sense, right? what
Yeah,
are you getting even from an on the court production
yeah.
standpoint?
What does this look like with this team? Like, what does a John Morant playstyle look like with this team?
Because the spacing on this team is nothing like some of the things that are provided from the Memphis Grizzlies. You have rookie Cedric Coward right now shooting lights out from beyond the arc. Jalen Wells has been relatively solid as a backup point guard slash off guard for this team. We know Triple J has improved the 3-point shot every single year, and if not improved, then at least been relatively like at a good pace in terms
Yeah.
of being able to knock down the three at a good enough clip at the power forward position. There's decent spacing on the Memphis Grizzlies, and Ja's always kind of had decent spacing around him. You guys are not built that way. And in this trade,
Well,
you're actually taking all of the spacing you really have consistent away in the process. So you have to ask yourself, as a player who predicates his entire game around getting to the rim, how much harder is it going to get? How much harder is it going to be to get to the rim? And by proxy, that ends up hurting his production, makes you wonder whether or not he can actually thrive within the system, on and on and on. So there are definitely two sides of the coin. Don't get me wrong. I think from a talent standpoint, paired with Emmanuel Quickley's contract, you at least think about it. But I can understand where you're coming from too, though. I ain't gonna lie.
it's a tough ask. The talent, I'm not trying to deny Ojummer. I'm still trying to like defend him as much as possible. But even for someone like who would be great to see on my favorite team, just the fit is already tough. Giving up another first round pick to kind of make this work too, like it feels like one of those trades that in a couple years that Raptor fans will be like, yeah, it felt right at the time, but we could have done without it. You know, one of those type of trades. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, maybe it made sense. Maybe you could talk yourself into it at the time. Same thing with the Jakob Poeltl trade. Same thing with the Thaddeus Young trade a few years ago. But then when you like really look into retrospective, you're like, did we really need to make that trade? No, and I feel like
Right.
that's more of the history of the Toronto Raptors more than anything showing up there. So I would stay away. Not because again, I'm not saying that this is the end of the road for John Morant, but I just don't think in the Toronto Raptors system specifically he would thrive as much as in some other ones. So I would say that. All right, but let us know down below. These are some two trades that we have for John Morant. Let us know down below. We have some good ones here today, so we want to hear your thoughts for it down below. The final thing we want to go into today to kind of cap off this episode, because we were talking about trades, Jay, because I found this really funny, because we always have this conversation every year with the Chicago Bulls and certain years our my Toronto Raptors. When will you finally jump ship? When will you finally trade all your guys and completely go for a full rebuild? And Jay has finally started with Chicago Bulls West with the Sacramento Kings, with the with the report saying maybe it's time for them to fully jump ship on this team, as if coming into the season we thought that this team wasn't a good idea. Yeah, we all kind of saw this coming, and now they're having their coming to Jesus moment, saying, "Yeah, let's maybe this wasn't such a great idea." And there's already reports saying they're gonna move off of this. So we talked about how already bad the Kings are, but I just wanted to bring up a trade or two to kind of cap off this episode to see, you know what? Maybe the Kings should do this trade. Jay, the first trade I'm going to give you, we're going to go for the big dog here. We're going to go for Domantas Sabonis. And Jay, I said this team might come up a little bit more. Let's go take him. Let's go take him to Detroit. Let's take him to Detroit. Pair him up with Cade Cunningham in exchange for Tobias Harris, a 2026 first round pick, top 10 protected, and Jaden Ivey. How are you feeling about that trade?
I don't know if I'm crazy about it. I know that Jaden Ivey's dealing with the constant injury issues, and that's kind of one of the things that's really taken away from how good he was last year before he went down with injury. But at the same time, dude, I mean, that front court with Beef Stew and Jalen Duren has been absolutely, like, monstrous this year. They've just been so impactful. And it feels redundant with DeMontis because he's not a floor spacer. So he doesn't do anything necessarily different from what those two guys do. He's not a better rim defender than I think either one of them are. He may be a better rebounder individually than either one of them, but they're both doing really good playing right next to each other on the offensive and defensive glass. He's a better passer than both of them, but do you need another high level passer on the floor next to Cade Cunningham when he can't spread out to the 3 point line? I don't know. Like, if he's not somebody who can stretch the defense and he's just another person that can pass out of the post, yeah, it's a different element. But, like, unless you're trading for DeMontis Sabonis and using him as the luxury item of somebody you can bring off the bench, I think this Detroit Pistons team is actually in a really good spot with what they have in the front court. And I think you're just kind of getting away with murder by being able to like simply move off of Tobias Harris and Jaden Ivey, who aren't necessarily playing well or aren't playing for you right now. You know, I think that
Yeah.
DeMontis for this team is more of a luxury item because he doesn't provide anything different from what you already have and what you already do well. They're already one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league right now. They're already one of the better rim pressure teams in the league right now. Like what does DeMontis do that makes them better outside of if he comes on this team? I guess, like I said, he could whoop on second units. I mean, he would absolutely dominate in that circumstance, but I don't know if they need him per se.
It's a weird one. And it's
Yeah,
I the only reason I bring this up because this is definitely a buy low sort of idea if you're like a Detroit Pistons fan because right now they're looking great. A 2026 first round pick is not really going to add to a team where you want to be competing over the next few years. Tobias Harris obviously is not going to be a long term piece for you. Jaden Ivey, we can never even know what he's going to be long term because he just keeps getting injured. Unfortunately for him,
yeah,
so getting DeMontis a bonus, we know that he's an all-star caliber guy. At his peak, he is an all NBA caliber big. But like you mentioned, where does he fit here? I do think though that again, I don't know how like this is truly going to work, but I do like the idea that when Cade Cunningham is off the floor, and I think this is like something where I just don't want it to add up eventually because Cade Cunningham over the last few years has been one of the top guys in minutes.
yeah,
So having someone like to really initiate an offense like a DeMontis Sabonis could really be nice, especially with a lot of these like nice athletic guards, a la his time with De'Aaron Fox back in the day with the Sacramento Kings. But the thing is that going to work? Him being like the man to lead second unit to do so? Because I think that could be effective. Splitting the time him and Kate Cunningham. But at the end of the day, do you want the ball out of Kate Cunningham's hands right now? Probably not. Especially with the way that he's been playing. He just keeps getting better and better year after year. It's a buy low thing. So I don't think like, even if this trade doesn't work out, it's not like it's going to hurt the Pistons greatly in the long term. But I think I'm on the same boat with you. Why try to rock the boat with something that's been working so well right now? Maybe get some more guard help. Maybe get, another backup point guard because somehow, some way, these Pistons guards just keep getting injured. But getting DeMontis Sabonis, even though it is a buy low option, I don't think that's something if I'm the Pistons, even though it is buy low, I wouldn't try and go for that sort of trade.
yeah. The Pistons. I'm thinking about it more, and I'm like looking at the contracts, trying to make it seem like is there a salary relief aspect of it that helps them a little bit as well to at least make it make sense for them, right? But I don't know. It's a weird like it's a talent upgrade, right? Again, Tobias isn't playing that well. He's doing like okay this season. Jaden again dealing with the injury issue. By the way, he's up for a contract extension. Don't necessarily know if the Pistons want to be on the end of that. If they're able to get a discount at this point, maybe. But if you're them, maybe you don't even want to be in the Jaden Ivey business. Maybe if you're Jaden Ivey, you don't want to be in the Detroit Pistons business. Maybe you do need that second draft team to get to help you maximize your potential because maybe Jaden Ivey may be capped out at what he can be on this on this Detroit Pistons team because Sir Thompson's coming into his own, Ron Holland's coming into his own. Obviously, Kate Cunningham is ascending into like an All NBA player. So maybe it's a mutual split where moving him actually is a benefit. But again, I think the reason why people keep mocking Lauri Markkinen to them is because they just need another perimeter ball handler who gives them some real scoring punch, and DeMontis isn't that. Now, that's not my back end way of saying that Detroit should trade for DeMar DeRozan either. Even though I guess he would be more of a fit for what it is that I'm describing. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is I think that DeMontis might not be the archetype of guy that fits for what I think Detroit needs to take the next step.
Yeah, I 100% feel you on that. It's a weird fit, but again, it's a buy low option. And if you're gonna buy low on a team, there's some guys there in Sacramento that would likely want to hold on, are willing to take care of the Tobias Harris contract if it means he can get some, rebuilding pieces back. So that is one of the trades. And Jay, I mentioned this to you before the episode. I was not looking at any DeMar DeRozan trades. I was not looking at any Zach LaVine trades because I am tired of looking for trades for them dating back to last year. So Jay, free my boy Keon Ellis. Keon Ellis has been in the doldrums.
Free him! Free him! Yes!
Free
Thank you!
Keon
Free that
Ellis.
man!
And man, just put him on a team that'll use him, bro. Put him on a team
Yes.
that could use a Keon Ellis. And Jay, this is a simple trade, a simple one for one that I saw here, but I would love to see him in a winning situation. Jay, let's send him to Denver. Keon Ellis for Payne Watson.
Ooh, TV, it's some Nuggets fans that's looking at you a little side-eye right now. I ain't gonna lie, brother. Nuggets fans love them some Peyton. I ain't gonna
They
lie.
do.
They love them some Peyton, bro.
He
Ooh.
has been a constant piece for them these last few years. But Keon, yo, if I'm talking about like really nice backcourt mates with Jamal Murray, especially
Yeah,
come playoff
sell me
time.
on this. Sell me on this. Sell me on this.
I mean, here's the thing, right? Obviously, you. I think like what makes this a lot easier to do this trade is, well, you have Cam Johnson. I know he's not having like the best season offensively to start off with, but you do have like a starting small forward to go with.
Mm,
Bringing in Keon Ellis gives you someone who has that 3 and D ability, someone who can play in the backcourt next to a lot of these guys that you have on your team already.
mm.
And I think that within this roster, within this defense, he's just going to be able to thrive in a place in a space where he's just able to guard some of the other team's best guards on some of the best guards like on the other side, especially come playoff time. The Sacramento Kings are not using him, Jay. They're not using him at all. We hear chants in the arena to play Keon Ellis, and it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Mike Brown, whether it's
Yeah,
whether
we said
it's
this last year. We said the same thing last year.
yeah, it
Yep.
doesn't matter who they have at head coach. They just don't want to play Keon Ellis. Maybe they knew something that we don't, but we clearly see every time he's on the court, he is a difference maker. He is a promising 3 and D guy, and I think with the guard rotation that the what the Nuggets have right now, you want to have another just like for sure guard you're going to play for in the playoffs, and I think with the amount of forwards that they have at the moment, I think you can use Payne Watson as a little bit of collateral in order to bring in someone like Keon Ellis who can again fit in right with your team.
Yeah.
The Cam Johnson trade helps in order to at least like solidify that 3 position because Payne Watson did start a lot of the games last year, just because especially with the Michael Porter Jr. injury.
Mm.
I say give it a try. I say you know what. This I think like Keon Ellis, I can imagine him next to like a Jamal Murray in a playoff series. I think that could be very very effective as well. I just like the different lines they can have that they can put on the floor. Even moving Christian Brown to the 3 sometimes that could work because he's not like the smallest 2 in the world. I don't know. I just want to see Keon Ellis play winning basketball, bro. I
Yeah.
want to see this guy on a winning team.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you from that perspective. Definitely want to see him play somewhere where he can actually thrive. I mean, at this point, I even think, and I hate saying this because it's going to stir up a whole separate conversation because it feels like this franchise gets everything. But stay in state and go to LA, dude. The Lakers need a knockdown 3-point shooter on the perimeter. This guy knows how to guard and shoot. Marcus Smart is trying to reinvent himself after having the last couple of years look like he didn't know how to defend anymore. Had 7 steals a couple nights ago. Somebody that is kind of having that 3 ball come along, but Dalton Connect isn't really hitting for them the way they hoped after the
Yeah.
first
You know
handful of
what?
games to start last year.
You know what's funny? One of the trades I was gonna have for you was Don Connect and a second round pick for Keon.
I mean, look, if you're the Lakers, you're like on that. I think like without a heartbeat in between. If you're the Kings,
They don't value him anyway. They
Yeah, I mean, at
clearly
that
don't
point, you're at
value
least
him.
getting somebody. The only thing, the reason why I say it's a little weird with the Kings is because he's so like Connect is. This might come off as disrespectful because I think Keegan is. I think so highly of Keegan, but him and Keegan are very redundant.
I know what you
And
mean. Yeah, I know what you
that's
mean.
probably the issue is that him and Keegan are so redundant. I'm talking about play style wise. They're
Yeah,
so redundant and they just also play the same position on top of it, right?
yeah.
So yes, you'd rather get some kind of value than nothing for Keon Ellis, who's just sitting on your bench. It's the same way I feel about Herb Jones for New Orleans right now. Like I feel like yes, injury issues have caused him a little bit of problem here and there, but like that's still a top 15, top 20 defender in the league when he's right. And he's in the desert that is New Orleans right now as far as good basketball outside of Derek Queen, who actually has been hooping for this team.
Glad. I'm glad for their sake.
Nasty
I'm glad.
basketball outside of Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears so far this year. Nasty basketball outside of that. Free my dog, but Keon Ellis, we've been talking about free my dog for Keon Ellis get date back to last year, right? So I think the biggest thing for like a Lakers team, or and I think the interesting thing about, let's stick with the Nuggets since that's the team you brought up. It doubles down on what they did or why they brought in Cam Johnson. It doubles down on a similar archetype of this guy that positional size paired with 3-point shooting gives them the kind of floor spacing they would want around Nikola Jokic, next to Jamal Murray, next to Aaron Gordon,
And you're not
while
going to lose the
having that
defensive
defense.
intensity, yeah. And you're not going to give up
Exactly.
the defensive intensity from Keon Ellis, yeah.
Yeah. So you get that opportunity to double down on something that, granted, Cam Johnson hasn't necessarily filled the role in the way that I think Denver Nuggets fans were hoping
Yes,
so
100%.
far. But
100%.
I do. First of all, I think his 3-point shot is going to come along. That's number one. Number
Yes.
two, I think when you look at somebody like Keon Ellis, again, you can run out. You mentioned the positional versatility and the lineup versatility. Like a lineup with Jamal Murray, Keon Ellis, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic.
Isn't
Yo,
that the most ideal lineup to have around like a
I
Jokic
mean,
type of thing?
that is. I mean, and some people will say Christian Brown off the bench, but like, look what he's done for the team. X, Y, Z. You're not wrong, but
But you need some shooting from that guard position too, man. You need
yeah,
some
you just
shooting.
the spacing, the Brown shot just is not moving along.
That's not
And
what he. That's not who he is as a player. That's just not who he's gonna
no,
be.
he
Yeah,
is a game. He is a game wrecker though. He's a game wrecker, but
for
he's
sure.
he's a game wrecker in the way that, I don't know if this is disrespectful or not, but he's a game wrecker in the way that like T.J. McConnell off the bench for the Indiana Pacers is. It's a very different way because he's much more athletic. I think he has a lot more on ball defensive chops in terms of what he
Very
can
good
do over
defender.
there.
Very good.
Very, very good defender. Very good in transition, I
Yes,
think,
for
as
sure.
well. So it's a different way, but I think the wreaking havoc off the bench archetype of this guy who just comes off the bench. Hey, we're not asking you to do anything specific. Just go out there, ball, and be crazy. That's all we need. I think he could actually thrive in that role really well, and we've seen him do it before. When he was
Yeah.
first on the when he first got to the Denver Nuggets as a rookie for this team behind KCP, that's kind of what he was asked to do, and he did a really good job at filling that position. I think he could do it again.
This just gives, I think for the Denver Nuggets wise, I know Payne Watson has been very solid for you these last few years. One of the guys that you like truly have developed in. But again, you're gonna have to pay him eventually. Keon Ellis, yes, he's an expiring contract too. But in terms of lineup versatility and different ways you can end games, this is the big thing too. There's different ways now you can end games when you have Keon Ellis on the court
Yeah.
because him and Christian Brown, say what you want, both are going to be very good defensively. But if you want someone more who's going to be able to be a better cutter, be able to get to the rim, you can end the game with Christian Brown. If you need more
Yeah.
spacing, and that's what the game calls, you have Keon Ellis. It just gives you just so much more different options at the end of games. And again, Keon Ellis next to Nikola Jokic. Come on, man. Come on. I just think it fits great. I don't know if that means, do they have to attach something to Payne Watson to make it work? I don't know. Do you think the second round? I don't know. But I mean, like, If it means getting off Peyton Watson, and again, I think Peyton Watson is a much better fit if they are gonna keep him long term with like a Keegan Murray to build around rather than having Dalton Connect like you mentioned.
Yeah.
I I don't think it's a bad trade either way if you do like Payne Watson for Keon Ellis because both are going to be key parts of your playoff rotation no matter what.
Yeah, and I think it's a good fit, but let's go back to what you said, which I think is the overarching point is like that dude just needs to be playing in a winning situation because he's wasting away playing on a team that does not have real upside, and that dude coming out of Alabama just has known how to play, fill a role by knocking down shots, playing defense, being a great on ball point of attack defender, and he's not even really being able. He's not getting maximized. He's not getting
Yeah.
maximized, and he's somebody that I think when you think about some of these teams that could really, and I think all teams could use this archetype, but like, what about, for example, what about the Orlando Magic, right? He fits very well with like what their play style is. What about
I
I
was
mentioned
thinking
the
Portland. I was thinking
I,
Portland
that's
too.
a great name. That's a
Portland.
great name. You already look at what they have brewing with Drew Holiday, Shaden Sharp, Denny Avdia, Tumani Kamara, those
That's another
guys.
school I was looking
Just
at.
add another guy in the mix of it that has this like on ball pressure. We're gonna pressure you 94 feet. You're going to have to get past half court. You're gonna have to get past half court early and often because if you don't, we're gonna jam you up and create turnovers. Like that's a wreak havoc defensive team, and then you add his 3-point shooting to that team too. Oh man, like you don't think Portland when you think win now, but I think he's a guy who fits their timeline. He fits their play style. I think that's a really good name
Yeah.
too. Portland's another really good one too. Like his archetype fits anywhere. It's just not
Permeable.
getting used where he is, which is crazy to say, but it's the truth.
I mean, there's just certain vortexes that you can't escape, Jay. We talk about the Charlotte Hornets. We're at this point with the Sacramento Kings too. You just can't escape that vortex. And poor
Yeah.
Keon Ellis has been kind of stuck there since he got. I mean, he burst onto the scene as an undrafted guy, coming for the Sacramento Kings, and actually like earned his way into some minutes into the starting lineup. And somehow, some way, even though he has shown that he is effective no matter what he's on the court, just slowly it's surely just not being used. I don't know what's going on over there, bro. But
Yeah.
again, I think we're both on the same page on that at least. That he needs to be on a winning situation, or at least some
Yeah.
team that who's like actually serious about trying to be like a good basketball team. So free my boy Keon Ellis.
For
We
yeah,
need to
man.
get him on a team. Hopefully, Denver Nuggets team's good if they do make the trade. Portland, would love to see that type of trade as well. Let us know down below what you guys think of all the trades we had for Anthony Davis, any of the Kings ones. We talked about John Morant as well. If you have any thoughts on that, if you have any trades that we didn't even mention in this podcast, let us know down below. But Jay, we have reached the end of today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. What do you have to tell these beautiful people before we sign out?
Dude, the trade machine's already kicked out, and we're like only a month into the season. If that doesn't tell you how exciting this NBA season is going to be, I don't know what is going to send that message to you. But that also means you got to be tuned into the podcast, man. We record every single week trying to lock in on everything NBA basketball, the trades, the drama, the on the court production, which we didn't get to talk too much about teams in terms of how they've been playing so far this season in this episode just because of all the shenanigans that's going on around the league. But best believe we get into the X's and O's, we get into some of the best players in the league, we get into some of the worst players in the league too, in terms of just getting an understanding of what's going around with all 30 NBA teams. So definitely stay tuned as we continue to kind of navigate through this. And I think things are only going to pick up as we push through November and December. Like I think these trade talks are just starting to really, set the tone for what might be. Sham said this offseason was going to be like one of the noisiest ones we've had in quite some time. TV, he might have been a little late,
A
but I
little
think
early, you
we're
mean? A
finally.
little early. A
No.
little.
Remember this past
Okay,
offseason,
got you,
he
got you.
was
I know what you
saying
mean.
he was saying this past summer it was going to be a whole lot of chaos. And outside of the Kevin Durant and Desmond Bain trade, we didn't see a whole lot of chaos. He might be a little late, but I think we're finally starting to see what Sean was talking about.
100%, man. There's a lot of stuff going on, and again, the on the court has been fantastic as well. The NBA season has just been an absolute blast. The offense is pouring it on. People are finally starting to lock in defensively. I mean, this Denver Nuggets team, man, one of the most there's a lot of great teams to talk about, and we haven't even got to talk much about the Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic this year. Hopefully, we get to go into that as the season goes on. But yeah, just a lot of great basketball, a lot of great stuff. You're gonna be able to hear all of that on the Hit Your Free Throws podcast. So make sure you check us out on all the social media platforms here on YouTube, any of the podcasts that work. Just continue to support in any way you're possible. We see you. We all appreciate you. And again, we're going to keep pushing out this content. We have a lot of great NBA stuff to talk about going forward. We're going to be
Yo,
back next week with another new episode, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, Jay, it's been a fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you all have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Peace.
peace.